I, like many of you, have been fascinated by the life of Diana, Princess Diana, and her family now for years. There's a brand new book you're looking at on your screen. It's called Diana, Voice of Change. It's available next month, June 15th. Written by a man who was Princess Diana's voice coach. And, you know, it was kind of secret at the time. Nobody knew she had a voice coach. His name is Stewart Pearce. Hello, Stewart. It's good to see you. And let's start, if we can, at the very beginning. Diana, you were with her primarily the last couple of years of her life, correct? And you were her voice coach. I don't think a lot of people knew she had a voice coach. What exactly did you do for her, and why were you hired?
Well, it was during the time when she just finished the Panorama interview that, of course, is very much in the news at this time. And I was asked if I would actually help her with her voice and her presence, because when the princess saw herself in video, she didn't fully enjoy what she saw. She didn't feel that she was fully empowered. She didn't feel that her voice was centered. And so I was called in. What a great honor. I was called in to help her become the person that she really wanted to become, in the sense of exploring the radiance of her being so that she could communicate the fullness of her purpose.
And you know, it's interesting thinking back on that time, because if you look at that Martin Bashir interview, and like you said, it's in the news right now because apparently he got the interview by some means that weren't the most let's just say ethical at the time. But she went from being very meek, and I always remember her kind of speaking, looking almost through her bangs and looking down, to by the end, when she was out working on landmines or meeting heads of state, she had much more confidence. So I'm sure it was the work of you and other people around her that gave her some of that confidence.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've just said it. You know, the one thing that I wanted her to feel was, rather than using this submissive, looking through the top of her eyes, so to speak, you know, as though she was sort of like this, what I wanted her to feel was that her spine was articulating the sense of self-empowerment and the fullness of what her presence was actually all about. Diana was very alive in her body, you know, she was a sensualist. And so what happened was, it was very easy to tune her into the enjoyment of what it was to live a much fuller presence and to breathe much more fully, so that she could allow her voice to center itself in the very middle of her being.
And I think people, if you didn't live through it, you don't really understand how transformative this was for her and for the royal family, this period in her life. Because it seemed like the curtain was kind of closed on what was going on behind closed doors. And all of a sudden, Diana was one of the first people, at least in modern times, to come forward and say, look, my husband was in love with another woman, and here I am now kind of being cut off from the royal family. And it was shocking to a lot of people. And so what was that like, going through that period with her?
I mean, what an honor to be with this wonderful, beautiful, radiant, sensitive, empathic being. So, you know, it was one of the most extraordinary times of her existence, where she was really beginning to explore what it was to live a new vision of self. So, for example, my experience of her in the Martin Bashir interview, although there were things that I could help her with to open up the instrumentation of what her statement was all about, that she actually felt totally relieved about the new sense of self, in the sense of liberating her power to a new vision of the way that she could begin being a peace envoy and a humanitarian concern within the world. And I feel that we saw that. I mean, you know, for example, during the Angolan landmine issue, that 122 countries post Diana's teledocumentary actually rescinded their policy in relation to landmines. So she was an extraordinary force in the world, which we're now just fully beginning to remember at this time of empowerment for all wonderful women as they discover their own voices as the voice of change.
Can you imagine what her voice would be like today if she would have continued on? I mean, how powerful she would have been in so many different ways, as a force for good, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, huge. You know, it was said about the Queen of England that when she was first moving through the early stages of her career, that she thanked everybody from the bottom of her heart and the top of her voice. I feel that now that the Queen of England has actually discovered this weight, this gravitas, I feel Diana would have gone on to assert herself really meaningfully in the world through the passion of what that weight was all about, you know, what that gravity was actually all about. So she would have become a really effective change maker and shapeshifter.
Great talking with you. The new book is called Diana, The Voice of Change. Her voice coach who knew her here for the last 2 years of her life. Oh, there you go. You got to have a copy right there. Stewart Pearce. Stewart, thank you for the insight. And if you are a person like me who's interested in Diana, it might be a great buy for you there. Stewart, I appreciate it this morning. Good luck with the book going forward.
Bless you. Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet.